Morning, and thank you once again to everyone who's taken up the time to join us on this very important session. My name is Salieu Mansaray, and as you've been informed, I've been involved in all things internet for well over 15 years. I'll say close to 20 years. Looking at what we have to discuss here today in terms of the digital economy, as was stated in the introduction by Folake, I strongly believe that the internet will be the change enabler for Africa in terms of governance, in terms of economical growth, etc. So we have with us here a group of panelists who will be able to articulate some of these aspirations that we have in West Africa and how we can harness the potentials of the internet for greater growth in Africa. I believe the first will give the chance to do so will be my good friend, Mr. Poncelet. If you're ready, Mr. Poncelet, I will hand over to you for you to give us the opening brief. Over to you, Poncelet, if you're ready to go. Do we have Poncelet on the floor?
Thank you very much, Salieu. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can, and we can.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think this is a very good topic. Yes, this is a very good topic to start. Internet governance has been developing and has also been taking cue from what is happening with emerging technologies. And it is not surprising today we are talking about the digital economy as it relates to it. And it's also very much
we're having a break.
For one reason I just went off, you know. So I think I will start by saying we have to look at best what a very robust digital economy we do, not only in West Africa, which is about 1/3 of the African population, but across Africa, where our population growing rapidly. And this is very important in the sense that when we look at what has happened since last year in March 2020, when the COVID started, we discovered that a lot of things went digital. Our government started thinking differently. Things we didn't even expect African governments to do in terms of even ministers sending emails, or it was maybe secretaries or personal assistants. We all saw this happening because we discovered, whether it at the most bottom level, that people have to communicate. And the only way we communicate better without face-to-face interaction, as we're doing now in this forum, which we have learned from a lot last year when we had our internet governance virtually last year, is by using internet-based technologies to be able to communicate. And the way the digital economy too is evolving. A lot of payment systems have come into play. And one important trend that has happened is that a lot of countries have started seeing the importance of digital cooperation. So within the bigger picture, to look at what actually is digital cooperation, how around making all the players to each other and making those who are digitally excluded to be included in the conversation. I think with that said, I will stop there for now, and then I'll talk of solutions later.
Okay, thank you very much, Poncelet. Thanks very much. Yes, I think the whole idea of inclusion is very important, and more so when we look at adoption of most of the fintechs in West Africa. There's been a lot of growth in that area. So I believe that inclusion will be key. So we hope to hear a bit more from you as we proceed. I'll now ask for Madam Fatou to please take the, well, not so much the floor, but take the entire universe and give us her presentation. Over to you, Madam Fatou. Thank you.
Bonjour tout le monde. Merci, monsieur le modérateur. Vous m'entendez bien? D'accord, merci. Donc, merci à toute l'assistance. Je remercie encore WAIGF de nous donner la confiance pour pouvoir faire une petite présentation de l'économie numérique. Comme l'a si bien dit Poncelet et les autres présentateurs des jours, des 2 derniers jours, l'économie numérique est très importante pour l'Afrique et nos pays en particulier. Donc, moi, je vais juste me concentrer sur l'exemple du Sénégal pour vous donner un exemple de pays africain qui pense à l'économie numérique, qui voudrait utiliser le numérique pour mieux améliorer la vie de ces populations. Permettez-moi de partager mon écran. Merci. Est-ce que vous parvenez à voir mon écran? Je vais juste, OK. Là, une petite introduction sur le Sénégal. Certainement que tout le monde connaît le Sénégal, mais c'est pas mal de faire un petit rappel. Donc, ma présentation va comporter 3 grandes parties. Quelques chiffres sur le Sénégal. Un résumé de la stratégie Sénégal numérique 2025, c'est-à-dire pour mieux asseoir l'économie numérique au niveau du Sénégal. Le Sénégal a mis en place sa stratégie qu'on a appelée Sénégal numérique 2025. Alors, quelques chiffres importants pour le Sénégal, sa superficie, donc un petit pays à l'ouest de l'Afrique, la carte est visible à droite. Une population jeune de 17 millions avec une bonne densité de 85,52 habitants par kilomètre carré et un taux de croissance assez négligeable, mais qui s'améliore au fur et à mesure, et surtout un taux d'utilisation des services financiers aussi qui est assez important. Dans la partie, disons, numérique, on peut noter la contribution de l'industrie des TIC au PIB de 3,70%, donc classé 4e en Afrique. Le taux de pénétration mobile aussi est de 114,21%, mais surtout le cumul linéaire dans fibre optique est très important. On note 13 500 km, dont les 5 000 proviennent de l'État du Sénégal. Donc, une bonne bande passante aussi de 380, ce qui est vraiment encourageant pour le développement de l'économie numérique. Encore dans la partie réalisation au niveau de l'économie numérique, donc le Sénégal a mis en place ses stratégies, Sénégal numérique 2025, mais aussi la stratégie nationale de cybersécurité. Disons que le Sénégal fait partie aussi des premiers pays africains à mettre en place. Et ces 2 documents très importants sont disponibles sur notre site web, le site web de notre département ministériel, www.numérique.gouv.sn. Aussi, au niveau du Sénégal, nous avons pu mettre en place un Conseil national du numérique qui permet d'accompagner l'État du Sénégal et de conseiller. Et ce qui fait la beauté de ce Conseil national du numérique, c'est qu'il y a le secteur privé, la société civile et le secteur public. Aussi, au niveau du Sénégal, comme vous le savez, pour mieux utiliser l'économie numérique, il faudra mettre en place un bon cadre juridique et institutionnel. Ce qui a été fait avec l'adoption du Code de communication électronique et l'actualisation de la stratégie d'accès aux services universels des télécommunications. Vous aurez ma présentation donc, que j'ai déjà transmise aux organisateurs, donc je ne pourrai pas tout vous lire, mais vous aurez toute l'information. On note quand même le vote de la loi sur les startups, donc la Startup Act, et là aussi le Sénégal fait partie des premiers pays à l'avoir voté. Nous avons toujours pour l'économie numérique avec un cadre juridique et disons un point d'échange Internet, aussi bien un secteur aussi qui est bien inondé avec des FAI et des NVNO, 3 partout. Et nous avons pu établir au niveau du Sénégal l'université virtuelle qui est une innovation vraiment importante, une première université numérique de l'Afrique de l'Ouest, du centre et de l'Est. Nous notons aussi toujours dans le développement de l'économie numérique plusieurs plateformes qui sont mises en place pour le e-commerce comme e-comcom. Nous avons aussi la partie e-solde, e-tax. Nous avons Télédac qui permet de montrer la dématérialisation des procédures administratives. Donc, nous sommes, vous venez de suivre peut-être même il y a à peine un mois l'inauguration du data center de Diamniadio, de l'agence de l'informatique de l'État, et la mise en place surtout des espaces services Sénégal qui constituent les pôles emploi. Comme vous le savez, le Sénégal, comme tous les autres pays africains, est confronté à l'employabilité des jeunes. Et donc, nous avons mis en place ces espaces où les jeunes pourront aller pour déposer leur CV, montrer leurs préoccupations en mode d'emploi, et serait aussi un bon espace pour eux d'échange et de recherche d'emploi. Rapidement, donc toujours sur les chiffres, dans les réalisations dans le domaine de l'économie numérique, on peut noter au niveau du Sénégal l'organisation qui a été institutionnalisée maintenant du Forum du numérique avec un grand prix du chef de l'État. Donc cette année, nous avons pu obtenir 3 grandes startups qui ont pu gagner ces prix. On note aussi au niveau du Sénégal, toujours dans l'inclusion numérique, l'importance de mettre en place et d'accompagner les femmes et les jeunes. Donc, nous avons un grand projet entrepreneuriat numérique féminin où nous appuyons les femmes pour s'autonomiser, mais aussi où nous appuyons les handicapés dans un autre projet qu'on a appelé Handicapé TIC. Donc, deux grands projets d'inclusion numérique et d'inclusion sociale aussi. Ça, c'est les quelques réalisations. Là, je vais juste revenir sur la stratégie pour mieux vous montrer un exemple de pays africain qui a pu plus ou moins installer la stratégie Sénégal numérique 2025. Donc, pour mieux asseoir l'économie numérique, montrer l'importance et comment cette économie numérique va accompagner les populations. Une stratégie qui a une vision futuriste. En 2025, le numérique pour tous et pour tous les usages, avec un secteur privé dynamique et innovant dans un écosystème performant. Je crois que la vision a déjà regroupé tout ce qu'on attend de l'économie numérique. Un secteur privé à développer dans un écosystème performant, mais surtout l'utilisation du numérique partout. Alors, nous avons 4 grands axes qui reposent sur 3 prérequis. Les prérequis aussi montrent l'importance que nous accordons à l'économie numérique, mais aussi à la population. Donc, si on obtient la confiance numérique, parce qu'on a beau vouloir mettre en place une stratégie avec le numérique pour tous et pour tous les usages, mais s'il n'y a pas la confiance numérique, les gens ne vont plus utiliser et on perdrait cette partie, les usages pour tous. Et le capital humain aussi, il est très important parce que quand même pour mieux asseoir l'économie numérique, pour mieux accompagner ces populations, il faut que ces populations soient bien formées et bien formées aussi dans les technologies émergentes, bien formées dans tout ce qui est numérique et dans toute cette innovation qui repose aussi dans le dernier, le premier, le plus important, prérequis qui est le cadre juridique et institutionnel. Mais comme je vous l'ai dit, au niveau du Sénégal, nous avons déjà pu régler ce premier projet, ce premier prérequis. Le deuxième, on a bien amorcé. Le troisième, nous avons déjà une stratégie nationale de cybersécurité qui regroupe donc toute cette confiance numérique. Et donc, disons que les prérequis sont bien mis en œuvre aux environs de 80%. Alors, nous avons les 4 axes là aussi, le premier se concentre sur les réseaux et services numériques. Le deuxième, comme vous le savez, dans la première version, vous avez bien vu, j'ai mis stratégie SN 2025 actualisée. La stratégie a été émise en, disons, 2016. J'espère que pour les traducteurs, je ne parle pas très rapidement pour leur permettre de bien, disons, traduire. Si c'est trop rapide aussi, on peut m'arrêter et je vais diminuer un peu plus ou moins le débit. Seulement, je ne voudrais pas que mon président, mon modérateur me dise que j'ai déjà épuisé mon temps. Merci. Alors, donc là, pour le deuxième axe, au début, on avait une administration connectée. Quand nous avons actualisé la stratégie, nous parlons maintenant d'une administration numérique parce que la connexion est déjà faite. Donc, maintenant, nous voulons une administration numérique au service des citoyens et des entreprises. Et pour l'axe 3, c'est la promotion d'une industrie numérique. Là aussi, ça fait partie des grands piliers de l'économie numérique, un développement d'une industrie numérique donc qui permettrait de promouvoir l'emploi, mais surtout faire la création de valeur et de richesse. Et dans le quatrième axe, nous avons la diffusion du numérique dans les secteurs économiques pour, disons, mettre en œuvre notre slogan, notre vision, le numérique pour tous et pour tous les usages. Alors là, nous avons un bon résumé de la stratégie en détaillant plus ou moins les actions nécessaires pour mettre en œuvre les prérequis, les axes, avec différents projets prioritaires, le développement des réseaux fixes, parce que quand vous verrez les chiffres, vous verrez que plus ou moins au niveau du Sénégal, le fixe était laissé en rade. Maintenant, avec la stratégie, on demande de le renforcer, d'autant plus que c'est un outil très important pour, disons, les IoT et l'intelligence artificielle. Pour l'axe 2 aussi, nous insistons sur la stratégie e-gov parce que quand même, nous avons déjà un début avec l'Agence de l'informatique de l'État où nous avons certaines procédures qui sont déjà dématérialisées. Et comme nous voulons faire une industrialisation de ces procédures, il faudra accélérer plus ou moins cette activité. Pour l'axe 3, là aussi, nous renforçons disons, avec la mise en place du parc de technologie numérique au niveau de Diamniadio, nous devons développer les services offshore IT BPO et surtout contribuer à l'entrepreneuriat numérique en général et féminin en particulier, mais aussi prévoir la mise en place de villes numériques, surtout sur l'axe Diamniadio, Sébikotane, Dias, pour ceux qui connaissent déjà bien le Sénégal. Et pour l'axe 4, nous allons faire la diffusion. C'est déjà entamé, comme vous le savez, au niveau du Sénégal. Notre département a déjà signé avec le ministère de la Santé une convention qu'on est en train de développer, de dérouler pour la mise en place d'une santé digitale. Nous sommes aussi en train de travailler avec le ministère en charge des territoires pour la mise en place de projets e-territoire, le développement numérique des territoires. La partie pêche aussi n'est pas laissée en rade, ainsi que l'agriculture et l'élevage, sans oublier le tourisme où les plateformes sont bien installées au Sénégal. Donc, pour le coût de la stratégie, au début, ça tournait à beaucoup plus, mais comme nous avons déjà entamé la mise en œuvre depuis 2016, actuellement, il nous faut seulement 106 milliards 460 millions et pour pouvoir réaliser cette stratégie dont 36% devraient être en PPP et 36% en privé. Et le public va s'occuper du 28%. Donc, pour la mise en œuvre de cette stratégie SN 2025, le Sénégal a déjà entamé quelques projets que je vous ai cités, mais nous notons la volonté politique qui manque souvent, mais là au Sénégal, nous notons une bonne politique, volonté politique des autorités. Là, nous avons une directive présidentielle même qui date du 29 janvier 2020 qui nous demande d'accélérer la mise en œuvre de cette stratégie en accompagnant les ministères sectoriels, en renforçant les projets déjà existants comme le parc de technologie numérique dont la construction va se terminer en décembre 2021, la mise en œuvre, bien le renforcement des projets entrepreneuriat numérique féminin et handicap TIC, mais surtout notre projet innovant qui s'appelle Smart Sénégal, avec l'appui des partenaires extérieurs où nous avons des projets assez structurants comme la mise en place de ces espaces services Sénégal pour l'employabilité des jeunes, mais aussi pour l'accès facile aux démarches administratives et l'accès facile aux services gouvernementaux. Aussi, nous devons finaliser le cadre juridique du numérique. Oui, nous avions des lois depuis 2008 qu'on est en train d'actualiser. C'est prévu même d'ici fin décembre de pouvoir les actualiser. Et actuellement, il nous reste donc dans la mise en œuvre de cette stratégie SN 2025 la réalisation, l'exécution de 5 projets prioritaires qui tournent autour de l'essentiel au niveau de l'économie numérique, donc, et aussi qui vont en conformité avec notre PSE, qui est notre cadre de référence au niveau du Sénégal, et avec son PAP 2A, disons que c'est le programme de prioritaire, et les 2A, c'est accélérer et ajuster. Oui, conformément à, disons, la survenue du Covid-19, le Sénégal, comme tous les autres pays, a réajusté sa politique et nos projets, les 5 projets prioritaires figurent dans cette politique réajustée. Ces projets tournent autour de la formation, du renforcement des infrastructures numériques et surtout l'accès au très haut débit dans les zones rurales et frontalières, l'augmentation du développement des usages, comme je l'ai déjà décrit, mais surtout la cybersécurité aussi, accélérer la mise en œuvre de la stratégie avec la protection des infrastructures critiques, la protection des enfants en ligne, mais aussi le renforcement du cadre juridique. Oui, le dernier point important aussi, c'est l'industrie du numérique qu'il faudra bien développer pour mieux asseoir l'employabilité des jeunes. J'ai juste détaillé le projet développement des usages parce que certains vont dire qu'est-ce qu'on a mis à l'intérieur. C'est la partie e-gov avec la digitalisation de l'administration. Nous avons un grand projet adressage numérique. Comme vous le savez, avec le numérique pour tous et pour tous les usages, nous avons besoin d'utiliser souvent, surtout avec la COVID, moins de déplacements, moins de regroupements. Et pour cela, il nous faut une bonne adresse numérique où on pourra faire des commandes, aussi bien pour le transport, style Uber, le e-commerce, style, disons, proposer des achats en ligne, de pouvoir acheter, de pouvoir vendre en ligne. Et comme vous le savez, au Sénégal, les transferts digitaux sont très bien installés avec une panoplie de structures et de plateformes qui marchent et que les Sénégalais ont plus ou moins maintenant commencé à avoir l'habitude d'utiliser. Nous avons aussi le renforcement de nos projets entrepreneuriat numérique handicap TIC, mais aussi le projet de la mise en place de l'Observatoire national du numérique, oui, pour mieux évaluer notre économie numérique et notre stratégie. Nous avons besoin de ces informations, d'informations fiables, mais aussi pour pouvoir partager avec l'Afrique et les autres pays les indicateurs au niveau du Sénégal. Je vais juste terminer par, disons, mieux expliquer les 5 projets prioritaires, donc pour mieux renforcer cette économie numérique au niveau du Sénégal, mais ce qui est aussi valable plus ou moins pour tous nos autres pays. Et nous remercions au passage la CEDEAO pour l'accompagnement dans l'harmonisation de nos stratégies numériques et surtout aussi de la cybersécurité au niveau des pays ouest-africains. Donc, nous avons le grand projet renforcement des infrastructures et l'accès aux populations. Il y a le projet développement des services et usages numériques, donc avec la mise en place ou bien l'accélération de la mise en place des e-gouv, mais la mise en œuvre aussi de la politique de cybersécurité, le renforcement, disons, de de l'industrie numérique avec la mise en place qu'on espère dans un partenariat public-privé d'usines de montage ou de manufacture au niveau du Sénégal, et ce qui est encouragé aussi pour les autres pays, pour nous permettre d'avoir nos équipements, de mieux connaître ce qui est derrière les smartphones et aussi de mieux renforcer la confiance numérique de ce qu'on met ou bien ce qui est derrière les équipements et appareils numériques que nous utilisons. Et le projet de renforcement de capacité, surtout dans les technologies émergentes, IoT, intelligence artificielle. Un résumé, une conclusion donc, l'économie numérique très importante, l'utilisation du numérique aussi avec la COVID, comme vous le savez, pour mieux faire une bonne relance, mais aussi une résilience. Nous avons besoin de mieux développer cette économie numérique, d'insister sur la partie cybersécurité pour que la confiance revienne ou s'installe, mais aussi d'avoir un gouvernement au service des populations et des entreprises, donc une bonne transformation digitale de l'administration qui permet d'accélérer les services et d'accélérer aussi la performance de nos États. Et donc, la mise en place de ce parc de technologie numérique qui est futuriste et qui permettrait au pays de devenir des hubs et de pouvoir accueillir les entreprises internationales et en pouvoir créer de l'emploi, retenir nos jeunes au niveau de l'Afrique, oui, et faire même revenir ceux qui sont partis étudier et qui sont utilisés autre part et qui devraient revenir pour mieux développer nos pays, pour mieux développer l'Afrique. Et dans ce cas, l'éducation serait bien développée, le e-commerce aussi, le e-santé, la e-santé même que nous appelons ici la santé digitale. Avec la COVID, nous avons pu voir que ce serait mieux pour l'Afrique, en tout cas de mieux développer la télémédecine et permettre aux populations d'éviter les déplacements, mais de pouvoir se soigner là où ils sont et de pouvoir développer l'économie à l'intérieur des pays. Monsieur le Président, chers participants, disons qu'avec le partenariat ensemble, avec le développement des services et le numérique pour tous et pour tous les usages au niveau du commerce, au niveau de l'agriculture, au niveau de l'éducation, au niveau de la santé, nous pouvons avoir des pays émergents numériques. Merci. Je vous remercie de votre très aimable attention. Monsieur le modérateur, je vous remets la parole.
I am not sure how we should do it, but I think that deserves a standing ovation. But I think just a bit of a tap from everyone will be enough for now. Madam Fatou, you've done a fantastic presentation there, fantastic. And I hope that we can capture this, and if possible, we'll have to ask for someone to do an interpretation of this slide for us in English, because looking at what you've just spoken about in the last 30 minutes, I believe that it's a very good framework for other West African and even African countries to copy from, because you seem to have laid the foundation in Senegal for a digital economy, not just for the next 5 years, but certainly, I believe, for the next 20 or, I mean, beyond 2025. This is going well beyond that. So we thank you very much. Just on some of the issues that perhaps might have been lost in translation, but the translator has done a very good job. You spoke about ensuring that we have the legal framework to enable the digital economy to grow in West Africa. That is very, very important, because without that, definitely there will be a lot of institutions that will hesitate on venturing onto online onto e-commerce. So that was very good. You also spoke about encouraging startups. That is an idea that should be universal. Startups we, on so many areas in West Africa, we're way behind, but the fact that in Senegal, you have put together a program to encourage startups to have more data centers, that also is very important. I think we will also take that up, and I'm sure participants here will look favorably at the SN 2025, which I'm sure will be, is it on your website, this SN 2025? Is it available on the website? On your country website, Madam Fatou? Madam Fatou, are you there? Okay, I mean, we can find out, but it seems...
Oui, c'est disponible au niveau du site web de notre département, comme je l'ai si bien dit, numérique.gouv.sn.
Okay,
Mais
excellent.
aussi, nous allons procéder à la traduction de la présentation et mettre à la disposition de WIGF.
Fantastic, fantastic. So we will be taking questions at a later point, but we'll now, perhaps for now, ask Madam Martha to take the universe and give us our own presentation. I think we will allow, I think if 15 minutes, will 15 minutes be enough for you, Madam Martha?
I wouldn't even use up to that.
Okay, excellent, excellent. We want participation from everyone. That we've got well close to 100 people online, so you have the ears of 100. So over to you, Madam Martha. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. It is indeed a great honor to speak at the 13th edition of the West African Internet Governance Forum. Permit me to stand on all existing protocols. So, and I am delighted to share my thoughts and experiences under the overarching theme, digital inclusion and access for resilient West Africa. Now, we know that the digital economy is the driver for innovation and economic growth, and it is driven by broadband internet, as well as relevant ICTs. Now, although we can clearly see that there exists a huge gap between the global North and Africa in terms of broadband access and adoption, the digital economy is still progressive in West Africa, with different countries growing at different paces and varying degrees. So Nigeria, for example, had 104.4 million internet users in January 2021. That is about 50% of the entire population, with a growth projection of 131.7 million users by 2023. In January 2021 also, Ghana had about 50% internet penetration, just like Nigeria. So we can clearly see that West African governments are making crucial efforts in putting infrastructures in place to penetrate very remote areas, define all the risks, which of course is highly commendable. So it is therefore urgent that deliberate interventions in the internet governance of West Africa be put in place for resilience. And here are a few of my recommendations. Number one, reduce the cost of access by driving internet policies that would encourage more digital literacy and digital skills at the grassroots. Not just having programs in the town as usual, having it in the cities where people are already have already keyed into the digital economy, but driving it to the grassroots, ensuring that more participation of vulnerable groups are well represented in the entire scheme to spur demand and adoption, hence expanding the overall access base, because cost is inversely proportional to access. So the more expensive the internet is, or the broadband is, the less people that would have access, and vice versa. Then the second recommendation I have is that the Internet Governance Forum needs to spur to ensure more in-depth participation in West African coalition of regulatory bodies. For example, we just heard the previous speaker talking about the wonderful things they are doing in Senegal. It will be it will be easier to replicate what they've done in other countries. But I also want to give an example of the Nigerian Communications Commission in the regulatory body for Nigeria. Just yesterday, we held an industry consumer advisory forum where the NCC synthesized stakeholders and the public on deployment of new technologies for improved consumer experience and debunking 5G misconceptions and conspiracy theories. Now, because of the NCC's model for consumer awareness and support, more users are encouraged to key into the digital economy because they know that their interests are protected by this regulatory body, and it is really encouraging with very, very wonderful success stories. The third suggestion I would like to put forward is that there's something that I coined up, earned access strategies for internet access. So I want to encourage the internet governance to implement that strategy. It creates a ripple effect, and it can be achieved by encouraging local content in local languages using the available resources. I'm talking about people in remote areas where they lack basic broadband infrastructures. Those people are the most marginalized, and special efforts like this have to be, special strategies like this have to be put in place to ensure inclusion. And if we use already the resources they have, it will be easier to pass on whatever information, digital literacy skills, even via radio, to spur innovation and interest in the digital economy. Once a few people begin to adopt it, they will share their knowledge and bring other users as well. It will create a ripple effect, and before you know it, the more users will get, we begin to key into the digital economy. And once the adoption is high in even a marginalized community, it will encourage the MNOs and it will attract more infrastructure that will, boost digital economy in that area. So the fourth recommendation I have is that strengthen rural economies to encourage urban-rural partnerships and migration, and also create more opportunities for marginalized communities to receive maybe small grants for running projects and businesses in the digital economy. This will increase traffic and users, as well as reduce the cost of deployment of more infrastructures to those remote communities in the long run. Then the fifth recommendation I have is that we need to strengthen policies. The Internet Governance Forum, the West African Internet Governance Forum, needs to strengthen policies and efforts at both the local and global level to combat privacy and cybersecurity challenges, especially as West African countries are adopting and implementing 5G. The implication of these threats in the IoT era is huge. And if those strategies are not in place to combat these threats, it will further widen the gap and even push out the people who are trying to key into the digital economy. And then the sixth recommendation I am proposing is that policies need to be driven to mandate West African governments to drive mass literacy on basic privacy and cybersecurity skills for all groups and individuals, because the threats that are going to be born and the threats that will increase as more people adopt, it's not, it doesn't discriminate whether you are vulnerable, whether you are and even the marginalized groups, the vulnerable groups, the excluded groups are more likely to fall victims to these threats. So it is very important that no matter the level or class of users, everyone has to be a soldier. Let me use that word, a soldier to combat the privacy and cybersecurity threats in the digital economy. Then on infrastructure, we cannot ignore the importance of reducing the cost of right-of-way. In Nigeria, the Honorable Minister has made, progress and has really put policies in place that will reduce the right-of-way costs for marginalized communities. And that is why we are recording more and more people keying into the digital economy. So lastly, I would like to chip this in that without good access and without digital inclusion in the digital economy, it will be very difficult for any country in Africa and even globally to achieve the sustainable development goals. So thank you for having me. Thanks to Mrs. Mary Duma for coordinating. I really appreciate you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Martha. That was an excellent presentation. So panelists and participants, I welcome you to another edition of the Jollof Rice War. So now it's not just Ghana, now we've got another war, which is a presentation war between Nigeria and Senegal. Well done, Madam Martha. We'll decide who the winner is, but I think we've got a winner for West Africa here. So thanks very much.
Thank you.
I think from what you have lamented there, it's very, very important that some of these recommendations that you've made are taken on board, and I'm hoping that our repertoire will be taking these 6 that you've highlighted. And I think it's very important that the issue of costs, because if we're going to ensure that there is digital inclusion and for the growth of the digital economy in West Africa, certainly we need to ensure that everyone comes on board. And so if we're now looking at 50% penetration in countries like Ghana, Nigeria, Senegal, and I think a few others, that is welcoming news. And in terms of the collaboration, yes, I do agree with you. That's another area that we need to work on, so that such ideas that we're bringing on board on such forums, so that all 100 or plus of us who are hearing these suggestions will take them on board. I do particularly like the one about the herd incentive, where we could have that ripple effect. Yes, that's very important, because I think there's also that term being used in terms of fighting the COVID-19, where to have herd immunity. So I think for now, you have coined that quite well in terms of having that herd ripple effect, which I believe will help us as well. On the issue of strengthening policies, you mentioned IGF. Are you referring to IGF driving the policy, or are you talking about government driving that policy, Madam Martha? Your 5th recommendation.
About driving policies to mandate West African governments to drive mass literacy.
Okay, right.
No,
okay, so
are you referring to that question?
I'm referring to your fifth suggestion, strengthening of policies.
Oh, yes. So all the recommendations, I'm directing them to the West African Internet Governance Forum,
right.
the IGF, the WAIGF, to be involved, in strengthening these policies. So just like, yes.
Yes, okay, that's, I think that's something that I think we're all taking on board. And when you talk about IGF, you talk about multi-stakeholders. So
exactly.
we're expecting everyone to be here. And which is one thing we've always pointed out, that we don't always just want the minister or the president or vice president to come and open up an IGF and then they go away. and then we send a communique. They said, oh, okay, they've done well, and put it to the side. So I think that we should continue on that. The issue of also, you highlighted the issue of cybersecurity literacy. That is also very important, because there are people who are apprehensive about utilizing the internet because they're afraid. So certainly, I think it's a good point. What we will now do is, perhaps, I don't know whether, Poncelet, you have other views you might want to come in with at this point. Are you there, Poncelet?
Hello, we have Eric. We have Eric on the call. Eric is on the call.
Okay.
Yes.
On the call. Okay, excellent. Okay, Poncelet, if you can just give us a few minutes while we hear from Eric. Thank you very much. Over to you, Eric.
Unmute yourself, Eric. Unmute yourself, please.
All right, thank you very much. Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to speak at this forum. I would load my presentation.
I don't know whether it's me, but I don't seem to be getting anything back from Eric. Are we all online?
Oui, on vous entend.
I think he has some challenges. So
yes. Okay, I think yes. We're okay. So while we're waiting on Eric to rejoin us, yes, I did throw this question back to you, Poncelet, taking into account what has been presented both from Senegal and Nigeria. You've been in this ecosystem for quite a while. How do you see governments being able to work with us, or how can we, as participants in such forums, work with government to push forward some of these policies? Over to you, Poncelet.
Yes, thank you very much, Salieu. I think brilliant presentation from Fatou and Mata. I think the key in moving forward is getting our people to be more included in the discourse, bridging that digital divide. So we still have a lot of people digitally excluded, but what we have noticed since these COVID times is that our governments have done more with people to be more included in various things. By, if you look at is it palliatives? They use the word palliatives during this COVID for government to disperse funds to vulnerable people. Most of this have been done through mobile money. In West Africa, we have a model of M-Pesa to the next level. So you have people, you have seen that in most cases, in this, especially in these times where we usually blame our governments that monies have been disappearing, that actually a lot of monies have actually gone to poor people who really needed our government have provided, and have done it through mobile money. You know, for example, in Gambia, it was done successfully, you know, and several other countries have. But the main thing, the main gist in your discourse boils down to bring the cost of internet down. Because if you look at it, we are in a situation whereby if someone, I'll give you a very typical example in my Gambia here. The cost of internet is $5 for 1 gigabyte of data. And it's $5. It's what feeds some family in rural area and stuff like that. So majority of Africans are still living below $1 a day. So, and we are talking of the average of internet in Africa. It's roughly over $2. You know, places that are very good, Nigeria and some other places, you're talking of $2, 50 cents or 70 cents, like in Senegal and stuff like that. It's still high. It's still high. So
yes,
people will force feed before they are thinking of getting credit.
Yes,
online.
I do agree. I do agree with you on that issue, of course, and I think it's something that we need to all work towards. And it's a key. It's very key, because if we need to have, people need to have access. And the key thing is infrastructure is growing. Yes, there's connectivity, a lot more connectivity, but certainly the issue, of course, is important. Do we have Eric back online? Eric, do we have Eric online?
Yes, I'm back.
Okay.
Sorry
All right.
for the...
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. All right. So, okay, over to you again once more. Thanks.
All right. Yeah, so let me quickly get back into my presentation. Okay, so my name is Eric from Ghana, and so I'll be sharing a few experiences on what Ghana is doing. And I will essentially be looking at a few of the pointers to the digital economy framework, and I want to just address a few of these things in line with some of these things. So I'll be looking at the telecom and internet infrastructure, where we are, where we're going. I'll look at the e-commerce applications and intermediaries, etc. And then I'll look at how participants have been equipped to transact within the digital economy, the legal and regulatory framework, and of course, I will touch on the taxation issue. Well, I think the general practice is to have a very robust telecom backbone for countries. I think for many years we've talked about the internet, the telecom backbone, on which the internet will normally ride on. And I think that's the primary thing. Many countries have done a lot of work in terms of putting fiber and other things on the ground. And of course, the internet transit, which rides on these infrastructures. Thankfully, we have all the international gateways that allow countries within the sub-region to have internet access. Of course, the question is whether these things are very adequate. Then, of course, the issue of access to the ordinary, what is the kind of quality that we have, and is it affordable? How stable? I just tried to get on board, and then my internet just went off. So these are some of the things that we need to look at. For Ghana, we have, I think, 4 main telcos, telecom operators. They have done extensive work in terms of putting fiber on the ground. And of course, the government has also done some fiber optics, especially in areas where the telcos are not able to put fiber because it doesn't make business sense for them. And of course, we have, I think, 5 international bandwidth transit providers, and they provide about 12.7 terabytes of data. So that kind of data, I think, is very adequate. The question has been more of the affordability. How affordable? Recently, we got some information that Ghana has the most affordable internet in the West Africa region. And essentially, I think that what the government did was to reduce some of the taxes that were on, especially the talk tax. And because of the COVID issues, there was a lot of outcry. And of course, it brought the internet, pricing down a bit. However, it's not as many will expect. There's still that agitation because everything that we do in the digital economy actually depends on the kind of internet access that we have. Now, Ghana's penetration is about 50%. And of course, for instance, the main telco has about 86 or almost 90% penetration based on their own areas that they find to be, business, to make business sense. However, there are areas that they cannot really access because they think that, well, it would not make business sense to recover whatever investments are made. So that is the challenge that we have. They're underserved and areas that are not served completely because of how dispersed, for instance, some of these settlements are. And of course, the government is using the Universal Service Fund, and it has launched what we call rural internet. There's been a number of locations that have been provided. However, the government effort is not enough. There are still areas that will not have this access for many months or years to come. And so the concept of community networks from tech and CSOs like Internet Society is becoming very handy. Of course, I know that Ghana Internet Society is currently working on some community networks to bring more people into the digital world. And of course, the issues there are mostly because these community networks are owned by the communities. There are issues of licensing. How do we provide licenses? Because these telco licenses are huge. And so there's this issue of, social licensing for some of these community networks. And of course, TV white space policy so that people can use this space to do. So these are things that are ongoing. The Communication Authority is been working on this space to ensure that people who can extend these networks can actually do that. And that's what I can say about the network infrastructure.
Okay, thank you very much.
In terms of deploying digital...
Eric, yes, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. It's just, I just want to perhaps give you a notice that we may need to give time to panelists. Obviously, we're running a bit out of time, but yes, if you can perhaps cover the main points so that we'll be able to give participants an opportunity to ask questions because we've only got not too much time. Thank you.
Okay, then let me just sum it in the next minute or so. A number of things have been done to ensure that people can get onto this digital world. And one of the things that the government has done is the mobile money interoperability. What that one has brought in is certainly to bring the unbanked to 96% because a lot of people have access and you can have interoperability between your accounts and other things, and it's brought a lot of people there. The other thing that I really want to also talk about is the digital identity system. The system, we didn't have a unique identity system, but thankfully we have a biometric identity system now, and the government is using this system to do a lot of things. One of the things that the government has done with this is to incorporate it as the tax identification number. Now, before that, the number of taxable people were just about 4% of the population. But once this was completed, that number has jumped to about 40-something%. And we're talking about just 50% of citizens having this new identity. And that is something that, of course, for government should be very good for them. Of course, let me just end by just talking briefly about, of course, in Ghana, we don't have a digital transformation strategy, but currently there is a project to review all the policies and then come out with that policy. And let me just end here. When we're having the discussions, if there are any questions, I think I'll be happy to answer.
Okay, thank you very much. That was also a good one from Ghana. So the Jollof War continues. Now, now over to all the participants. I know quite a few have been trying to send in questions, but if there's anyone there that has any questions, if you can raise your hand, perhaps we'll then be able to give you an opportunity to ask the panelists questions based on their presentations or the subject matter. You can put your questions on the chat if you want to do it privately, or you can raise your hand digitally for us to then give you a chance to ask a question.
Hello, may I ask my question, please?
Yes, please go ahead. Your name, please, and where you're calling from.
Okay, Ndeye from Ghana. I'm a member of the Ghana ISOC Ghana chapter. I'm very glad to see the interactions that we are having surrounding the digital economy. My question is about the potential of redundancy in our exploitation of the digital resources we have. I think Africa have had a history of allowing our resources to be redundant, taking a take from the fact that we have about a third of the world's natural resources and we are yet the least developed. Yes. So I want to ask, is this a major threat, and how are we strategizing to combat that? For instance, you have Ghana, we have done a lot in terms of digitization. A number of our digital platforms that the government has put up, you see that the utilization is very low. An example of our digital address system, the government invested hugely to ensure that every inch of the country is digitally assigned an address. But this system has been barely used for any serious activity.
Okay, those are two important areas. I get what you're trying to get at there. If we can quickly capture that, you're looking at the issue of redundancy. Certainly, if we want this economy to grow, this digital economy to grow, redundancy is important. Can anyone, Martha, anyone of the panelists want to perhaps give an answer to that, the issue of redundancy? Yes.
Yeah. So I didn't quite get the full question, but is he talking about redundancy of bandwidth?
Yes, infrastructural redundancy. Yes, because for some countries, I think rely on just one cable network, and so far the West African one, which will have created the terrestrial, is still ongoing. So that's a question I think he's putting forward. How are we preparing for redundancy, or what redundancy do we have?
I think someone else can take that. Okay.
Yes, Poncelet, or I think you have, or Madam Fatou, any notes on that in terms of redundancy? How is Senegal creating redundancy so that we're not just reliant on one mode in terms of our connectivity and in other areas?
Merci pour la question. Merci Salieu. Au niveau du Sénégal, donc, comme vous le savez, le Sénégal, vu sa position, est bien alimenté par les satellites qui passent. Et donc, pour régler le problème, quand je vous ai dit que nous avions une fibre de 13 000 et quelques kilomètres, l'État du Sénégal a déjà mis 5 000 avec l'Agence de l'informatique de l'État. Et actuellement, au niveau de l'Agence de l'informatique de l'État, on est en train d'avoir une connexion directe, donc pour ne pas dépendre, disons, de notre opérateur dominant que tout le monde connaît. Donc, c'est encore vraiment une bonne politique à mettre en place pour éviter cette dépendance. Donc, la redondance est bien tenue en compte, tout en respectant le fait que les télécommunications sont un secteur plus ou moins maintenant, disons, où il n'y a plus un monopole, et donc c'est un secteur qui a été plus ou moins délocalisé, que chacun pourrait venir solliciter, mais l'agence, l'ARTP, l'autorité de régulation gère bien avec le ministère et on essaie quand même de bien jouer sur la redondance parce que nous en avons besoin pour mieux avoir une bonne souveraineté numérique. Merci.
Okay, thanks very much. We have a question on the chat from Biliaminu Ibrahim asking about that Nigeria has launched the National Digital Economy Policy and Strategy, and how is WIGF partnering with the government to see that these pillars are implemented. Madam Mary, if you're aware of that, is there any way that perhaps collectively West Africa will be able to harness some of these individual policies from various governments? Madam Mary? Mary, we can't hear you. Okay, Martha from Nigeria also, you're aware of this digital economy policy. How do you see that being replicated in other West African countries?
Yes, that's in one of my recommendations. I clearly stated that there are actually some great things that some countries are doing, like Nigeria. I know the NCC has some models that other countries can copy from. And also the ministry has some wonderful models. The minister is doing some great work in terms of the digital economy and access and affordability. And also we had our speaker from Senegal and other countries. So that's why in one of my recommendations, I suggested that together with the IGF, multi-stakeholder collaboration, so that there can be synergies on what works and what doesn't work, and then each country, maybe in West Africa, can now adopt those things that work and change the way they are doing the things that do not work. So it's possible to synergize and really make things work collectively as a region. So that was one of my recommendations.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a question from Alice Lawrence. Cyber attacks is said to have risen by 600%. The question is, will illiteracy alone be sufficient without some form of laws or regulations? Anyone want to answer that in terms of cybersecurity awareness? Is awareness enough, or do we have to then have cybersecurity policies? Because in Sierra Leone, we've just enacted the cybersecurity and crime law, or I should say act. Is there any such thing going on in terms of the legal framework around cybersecurity? Any one of the panelists?
Okay, Okay, for Nigeria, there is a legal framework that the NCC has in place for cybersecurity and privacy. And even the digital economy has a robust framework. So it's, I think what we are now pressing is for more awareness amongst the people to know what is on ground. So that is where more sensitization is for the people to know. So yes, there are legal frameworks in Nigeria.
Yeah, Chair, can I speak for Ghana?
Oui, pour le Sénégal aussi. Il y a le cadre juridique. Nous avions donc une loi depuis 2008 sur la cybercriminalité qu'on est en train d'actualiser actuellement pour en faire une loi sur la cybersécurité. C'était une des recommandations de la stratégie nationale de cybersécurité. Oui, il y a une bonne partie sur la sensibilisation qu'il faut faire, mais quand même, il faut un cadre juridique. Et même au niveau du Sénégal, même les lois ont été plus ou moins réactualisées en ce sens. Et on continue avec la loi d'orientation sur la cybersécurité pour mieux encadrer. Nous avons besoin de mieux encadrer. Et nous avons mis en place, vous savez, au Sénégal, il existe aussi l'école régionale nationale de cybersécurité à vocation régionale qui forme sur les risques et les potentialités. Et nous avons une brigade au niveau de la police qui s'occupe de la cybercriminalité, mais aussi au niveau de la gendarmerie.
Thank you very much.
Vraiment, tous ces éléments sont mis en place. Merci.
Okay, thank you. Thank you once again to our fabulous panelists for the excellent presentations. We have seen and heard on the presentations that there is a lot of potential. There's work that has been done that can be replicated right across West Africa and beyond. So I think our takeaway from this is that West Africa is prepared, but we need more collaboration, and to enhance that, we're doing a lot more. And once again, I want to thank the panelists. I want to thank all the participants, well over 100, which is quite good. And we hope that we'll continue this dialogue as we move along. So over to you, Madam Mary, and thank you once again to everyone who has participated at this, as our time is now up, and thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Salieu, and your amazing panelists. We have definitely learned a lot, and we now know a lot more about digital economy. But in the same breath, the next session is about emerging technologies. As we all know, the new technologies are changing the world: artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, 5G, quantum computing, etc. The speed at which they're evolving and the significant impact these technologies can have on our daily lives and in the region needs to be delved into a lot more. So the next session will be looking at emerging technologies. The moderator for this session currently works as a front-end web developer and is an aspiring tech, and as an aspiring tech policy analyst.